Recording in progress.
Brothers and sisters, divine family of light, I'm Giaya Ariati. I am the Oracle for the 144. I am of sound heart and sound mind. Today's a special transmission around the choice point of role reclamation in relation to Atlantis and to this pivotal point that we have over the next coming days and into the next wave, and completing in on the final point of choice by the 21st of September. Pending where you are in the hierarchical expression of consciousness, meaning that of where you are sitting within your own state of being in evolution, not that it means that you are any better or less than anyone, just at where you have come to in your own self-realization journey and attainment. That this will pend whether you have already moved through this, if you are moving through this, or if you are going to need to support, or if you will move through this in the final days. This is very specifically a choice point that was created for the bringers of change. Now, to give you some insight into that, we are specifically talking about a Atlantean role that was not only the same in the Atlantean times, but coexists in our current and now time. So these roles are responsibilities of what we've chose to bring to the earth in that timeline and in this timeline. It does have a correlation and a connection to that of the previous points of time that were associated, that being of Sirius and Lemuria. So there is a co-connection. You may be having a lot of Sirius and Sumerian or Lemurian remembrance at the moment, and this is in preparation to bring you to the point of your Atlantean remembrance and what is being called forth for you. And now the reason this is so important for me to share is not only about how it affects you, but how I can further explain who I am and how you can make sense of what it is that I do and how to receive my transmissions and information to the best of your capacity and ability, with interpretation of who I am and who I have been, and my role through the time-space continuum up until this point in time. To give you a sense of what it is that I'm currently experiencing, it is a merging of a pure prophetic trinity. So the pure prophecy is the energy. And the reason that I want to speak to you about this is because of how my future transmissions will be affected and how you may have misunderstood some of my previous transmissions and been misguided by the word based on the missing components. For us to do this with as much ease and grace, just taking some deep breaths into the body and into the being. And in. Based on my current capacity of my physical body not meeting that of my consciousness, I'm going to do this transmission with my eyes closed. The physical body is making arrangements to be able to hold the new state of purity consciousness and God Self in form. And there is a requirement for the vessel and the body to be purified at a state that can merge these points of being together. In that awareness, when Spirit speaks, when God asks me to deliver, I do, regardless of sound, location, reception, and all pieces in between. What is needed to be received will be received, and what is not, will not. So first we need to start with this story, a story about the identity or the incarnation cycle that I was in Atlantis, and how that has a correlation to the now moment. So for your cognitive mind, just going to invite you back into your Atlantean remembrance, so that my story may invite, invoke, and bring forth a remembrance of who you are and who you be. My mission for my Atlantean life was to come to Earth and to be of assistance in purifying the Atlantean consciousness and allowing for the Atlantean civilization that had detoured from God's plan and was in the control of that, otherwise known as the being as Marduk. Marduk being that he separated the divine family and took others to advance the human race through AI intelligence, Archon energy, and advanced technologies through different inversions and control structures. The Atlantean civilization had become that of a detrimental experience for that not only of the beings in Atlantis, but also for the entire galaxy, as each and every being has a ripple effect throughout creation. In the awareness that Atlantis was creating a detrimental consciousness effect on the entire galaxy, there was a divine team of beings that had remained in that of Lemuria, or those that were connected to the original creation of the earth. These beings chose to come on a mission to help purify the consciousness of the Atlantean civilization and to assist our brothers and sisters that were stuck on Earth, to assist that of the remembrance and the returning to God's source creator. In that mission, I and two other beings of light, divine feminine expressions, were there to carry the purity of the prophecy. This was a trinity of very advanced information, where each pillar held a perspective lens to bring through the prophetic vision for that of the leadership to make the correct divine timeline pathways to assist in the purification process. On incarnation into Atlantis, the Trinity were in the same tribal expression, and they would work together. That being that one of the individuals was the vision. One would be the transcription of the light and interpretation, and I was the seer of all light, all pathways, all timelines, and all creation points. The conduit of prophetic creation, you could say. And we needed each other for a clear interpretation of this information. That of the transcription would use that of my conduit abilities in this life to translate in word to share with the leadership what was being seen. And that of the visionary would fill in the pieces to show another perspective lens for greater clarity. However, there was a challenge with the leadership, that being that my abilities were far more advanced than the physical matter could understand. That the leaders of this timeline did not understand that I was seeing way into the future. To explain how this being saw, she did not have the capacity to see in separation. So her advancements and skills were to see light in all forms. She sees pathways, but there is no beginning and no end. She moves through the entire time-space continuum and can interpret any loop of consciousness, but there is no points that are readable for her, as she does not have an interpretation of separation. Which means that she would see those of her divine brothers and sisters as her, and that everything was seen as though it is light, and light moving consciousness in expression of being. So for her to gift information to those that were asking for specifics, it was very challenging, as she did not have the ability to separate consciousness. She is the light interpretation of pure consciousness moving through the cosmic creation of infinite intelligence. You may have already started to understand this from my transmissions before, that there is a tendency not to have full stops and pauses, that there is a flow-on effect where the information moves through and weaves and does a dance through your consciousness, creating new synapses and pathways, a flow of information that allows for the remembrance of your own internal connections to creation to be uploaded and online. This is the way that I perceive and see the world. I do not have a very large capacity to see start points or end points, that I challenge myself and others to not see beyond each moment of weaving, and that completing and running by structural timelines in this reality is quite challenging. And so for this young High Priestess, who is very young and pure, and her innocence within the vessel, and these other two sisters were needed to be understood, and they were misunderstood. They were misunderstood in their interpretations of information because there was some missing components. There was other key roles and players, this being that of the masculine energy. 3 priestess energies connecting to large amounts of source frequency did not have a structure. They could not interpret the stages or the frameworks to their highest ability. Although they could create some interpretations of this, they were often misunderstood and misguided, as they were not clear and concise in these points of discussion. This meant that the leadership roles disengaged the power of these beings. They did not hear or listen to the capacity of the gift that was provided, because they did not know how to communicate with it. When you do not know how to communicate with consciousness, when you don't know how to receive light and make sense of it within your own cognitive mind, you will reject it, and you will say that it is wrong. You will say that is not what you said, but it's because you're receiving it from your lens of interpretation. Consciousness, however, and information of light streams is never wrong. It is always flowing in truth, yet the receiver is the misguided solidifier of how that is grounded into reality. The receiver is the human interpretation. The receiver is the framework and the structures of mind. In this misunderstanding of this trinity, I was separated from the other 2 sisters and made an exchange for a treaty. In this exchange, each of the 12 and the original family leadership roles that were incarnated at the time had traded me for different technologies at different times, seeing the power but not knowing how to use it, seeing the power of the conduit but not knowing how to translate it, seeing the power of the information and wisdom but not knowing how to implement it. And therefore I was traded off for different technologies that were instead used as entrapment programs over the earth. As I made my way through these different hierarchical, patriarchal men, there was a lot of physical abuse, punishment, and sacrifice that had taken to my body. The purity of the consciousness, however, remained. The vessel was damaged. The vessel was broken. It was only once one of the tribe leaders saw the spark, also did not know how to interpret it, but wanted to save me from the enslavery of my gifts being misunderstood, that he made an exchange, like all others, for me, and assisted me to assist the collective with light healing, or instantaneous Christos as we know it now. I became the healer of the tribe and a being of peace. But my prophetic and oracle interpretations were never understood. They were never taken seriously, and they were never able to be interpreted, which is where the fall of Atlantis became that of a truth. Although near and when I started to see the great deluge, I shared and spoke to it, speaking to many of the leaders around that which I saw, speaking many to the individuals of that which was going to unfold. The challenge with the human experience is that if you cannot see or find any proof in your physical, tangible human reality, you deny it. There was not enough physical validation for what was being seen, that there was a disbelief that it was taking place. When the war came upon our tribe, I was taken back to safekeeping, in where I shared my visions again and again and again, at no benefit to the collective race. Those that were in power and had enough calling to assist, that could have trusted in their own source guidance to interpret and understand what was coming through me, could not hear. The reason that my gifts and the gifts I continue to maintain in the I am of the now are misunderstood is for those that do not receive them through their own source connection. If you receive my words and that of what I'm sharing through your egoic mind, you will never understand what I speak. What is being spoken is through your own connection to God. As an oracle, as a high priestess, we connect those to their own source connection. That is the role. We provide a pure expression that allows for this information to be met within yourself. Had the leaders of this time not been driven by their own need to play God, their own need for control, their own need to meet their mission, then my words and the other sisters' words would have been heard and received. And Atlantis would have purified, and there would have been no deluge. However, that is not what took place. There was a deluge. I and many others drowned. Many of us were lost, and the civilization and most of that was destroyed. There still remains aspects of this civilization that are hidden in our current now reality, owned by military personnel, holding very important light maps that you gave up in the failure of listening to your own source connection, in the failure to listen and trust the divine plan. We are currently moving through exactly this same point of time, where you are given a point of trust, to trust source, to trust the flow, to trust your own guidance, but to reclaim the role that you gave up in Atlantis when it fell. When your brothers and sisters drowned, when the civilization and the technologies were destroyed, inverted, and bought against humanity for entrapment, that you are now given an opportunity to see where once you have forgotten and once you felt there was no other way, but now you can choose to trust a new one, It is not that we are any more evolved. It is not that we are any more intelligent. It is not even that we've learned our lessons. It simply is, will you choose to trust Source now, or will you continue to be overrun by the separation and the constructs of this reality? For you to make sense of what I'm saying, it is important for you to know that you are being provided a point of deciding if you reclaim the role you chose in this incarnation. To see what your role was in Atlantis. What had you chosen to be? In my story, hopefully you have felt some sparks and remembrance. My role was to be a bringer of the prophecy of purity. I still hold that role, but I have evolved it as the two other sisters are not at the capacity to assist me. So I have chosen to hold this purity of the prophecy within myself. This means my physical body is going through much upgrading to hold this light, as it was divided between 3 individual beings. This creates a lot of challenge on the physical matter through the DNA upgrades and through the genetic modifications. It does not mean that I do not desire to meet these sisters, nor does it mean that we will not work together in the future. But it does mean that at this point in time, their prophetic abilities are not at the clarity that will assist the human race, or the bringers of change. That as pure conduits, we need to ensure that we trust Source before all else. And if you are tethering in human mind, then you are unable to do your duty. It is time to see if you can trust God, Source, and your role that you chose to assign yourself more than your human mind. More than the story of how you see it. More than the proof. Do you trust your own remembrance more than what you see, sense, or feel in your current moment of time? How much can you trust God? And how much can you trust your connection to God, that you allow yourself to follow the divine plan? If you feel as though you are unable to follow this divinity, the divine connection within, and you are not at a point where you can uphold your roles and responsibilities, then it is advisable that you choose to omit, forfeit, and release your role. The role that you chose that is corresponded to the Atlantean time, and any other roles that you've chosen in this incarnation that you can no longer meet with certainty. This is a hard, stern word, but it is also truthful, loving, and compassionate. How much do you love your divine brothers and sisters? How much do you care for the success of the mission? If you are unable to complete your role, then please remember the love you have and forfeit it to someone who can. If you are someone who is devoted and you have the capacity, then you also have the opportunity to take on further responsibilities. As I have, you choose to evolve yourself into holding a higher responsibility, which means navigating the world in a new way. Not only am I holding my own gifts and talents, I've now brought in the entire Holy Grail of the purity of the prophecy. The pure prophecy and the trinity sitting within me, which means I need to be able to transcribe these visions and also start to see them. Although I still challenge myself with start and end times, my beloved and the man that is to lead in our mission directive is the one that will see these specific structures. Together, as man and woman, he uses his abilities to build the frameworks and to allow for the tangible human interpretation to be brought forth to you. This is why woman and man are different. This is why our roles and responsibilities are different. What he does complements what I be. And for us to deliver this information through Light Source, which is a new launching campaign on YouTube, launching on the 23rd, which is information for the new earth. I cannot do this alone. If you have ever received any of my previous prophetic visions, it's because I did not have the clarity to give dates, times, and interpretations of structures because of how I perceive and see the world. I flow with each layer with no beginning and no end. When I see you, I see me. Our energies dance and orb together. I cannot divide you from me, and I wouldn't want to. So in this awareness of what is taking place, not only have I chosen a higher responsibility, so has my beloved. He is taking on an interpretation of others that have forfeited their role. It is up to you to choose what is important for you as we move into the new earth foundations. These foundational structures being built on the 23rd into a plan that will be solidified. Before this point in time, we have been writing the maps, scribbling out, rubbing out, redrawing, moving, realigning different roles, different foundations, placing a room here and a plant there. And the frameworks of this structure has been movable. As of the 23rd, that will no longer be a choice. What we choose in this time is imperative. What you choose now will create the new earth foundation. We cannot stay in the planning stage forever. We cannot stay in the training stage forever. Eventually, one must qualify and work in totality and amend any mistakes that have manifested through the inability to see them. This is our next step. No longer are we in planning. We are now in the beginning stages of building the foundations, laying the concrete, and starting to build the frameworks of the house. The kingdom of heaven, however that may look, however advanced that consciousness is, it depends on you and what you choose now. The information that will come forth will be presented very differently, as it will no longer be just the feminine lens, that my mission could no longer continue in this way to its highest effect. As you can see through the way that I express and communicate, what is shared between the words and what is expressed in any of my other transmissions is I need more foundational structure. I need reach, and I need an ability to express the information in a way that can be digested by the entire human race and not just by the beings, the 144 or the bringers of change. It is time to evolve beyond the ways you have been functioning. It is time to evolve and start to build, ground, and create. This is the next phase. What foundations are you going to create from? And are you ready to reclaim your role, evolve beyond it, or forfeit it for something else? The choice is yours. The choice is always yours, as you are a sovereign being of God's source creator, and that is the human experience. I love you, beautiful souls. Thank you for receiving this transmission. Thank you for receiving my story and seeing a little more of how I see the world and how you can start to interpret the information that comes through me to the best of your capacity.